Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdsson of World Alternative Media here, and there is breaking news coming out of the state of Virginia right now as the governor temporarily declares a state of emergency. We're going to get into all of the breaking news here today out of Virginia as an armed militia prepares on January 20th to storm the Capitol after countless attempts to ban guns, seize guns in Virginia. Though Republicans in the state had previously shut down Trump's endorsed red flag legislation, it does appear like there are serious casualties to the Second Amendment in Virginia right now, and people are taking notice. And for that reason, the governor just declared a state of emergency and banned the use of guns on the property of the Capitol. So we're going to go into all of that. First, make sure to press like on this video and check those links below because this video will definitely be shadow banned and definitely demonetized. So send in those super chats as well and check those links, get your t-shirts, etc. Anyway, let's get to the news here. As this article says here, Virginia declares state of emergency after armed militias threaten to storm the Capitol. And as it says, the governor said law enforcement had intercepted extremist rhetoric similar to the lead up to Charlottesville days before pro-gun activists are holding a rally. Now, before I get any further into that, notice some connotations that they kind of mix in there as if this is somehow a white supremacist event. They connected to Charlottesville. Now, I'll keep in mind that there was a lot of violence at Charlottesville, but it was a totally different thing. This regards the Second Amendment and free speech in Virginia, a state that has historically been quite pro-gun, is watching their rights stripped away by a very left-wing government, and of course, so close to the belly of the beast, Washington. Obviously, this is huge news, historic news, really. And to tie it in with Charlottesville is absurd. We all know that Charlottesville and protecting your right to defend yourself are two entirely different things. But of course, they want to prop up that kind of idea in the media, like we are going to see a bunch of white supremacists shooting people and running people over with cars, which is absurd. But let's get further into this article here. And I will put it up on the screen in just a moment. Please bear with me as I am on my phone at the moment and trying to break this news. Okay, so as the article says, in response to what he described as credible intelligence of threats of violence at an upcoming gun rights rally in Richmond, Virginia, Governor Ralph Northam has declared a state of emergency and will temporarily ban individuals from carrying firearms on Capitol grounds. The governor said at a press conference Wednesday that authorities believed armed militia groups plan to storm the Capitol during the January 20th rally. As it continues, he also said that law enforcement had intercepted threats and extremist rhetoric similar to what was observed prior to the violent Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in August 2017. And I quote, "We will not allow that mayhem and violence to happen here," he said, again, making connotations as if protecting your rights means white supremacy. As it continues, it says, "The decision to ban all weapons, including firearms, won't sit well with the thousands of gun lovers who are expected to descend on Richmond to participate in what was billed as an open carry affair and an opportunity to flex Second Amendment rights." And I quote, "No weapons will be allowed on Capitol grounds," said Northam, a Democrat. "Everything from sticks and bats to chains and projectiles. The list also includes firearms. It makes no sense to ban every other weapon but allow firearms when intelligence shows that an armed militia group plans to storm the Capitol." Notice that there's a lot of similarities with this and what Adam Kokesh, as we reported years ago, planned, I believe, in 2012 to create this massive gun rights rally in Washington, D.C., and he ended up just loading a shotgun in Freedom Plaza and getting arrested for that. But this is much more crucial today with red flag laws, with the level of restrictions to gun rights in the United States climbing, and always so slowly but surely and incrementally, so people almost don't even notice. it is becoming more crucial than ever. Now, let me make this completely clear for legal reasons and all that. I'm not going to, and support violence in this case, but I will say that isn't it strange that government can kill millions of people overseas and restrict people's free will, but people can't defend themselves? I mean, that just shows that we are subjects of a criminal, cartel. And so the government's running all these guns into Mexico, arming and funding terrorist groups, and you carry a gun and you're the bad guy. It says a lot about the state of the world that we live in and the amount of propaganda that we see being pushed forward. Let's get back to the article here. As it says on the Facebook page for the rally, several attendees are already saying they won't comply and leave their weapons at home, even though Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney has vowed a hard line on rule breakers. Violations of the law will not be tolerated, Stoney said. Well, yeah, but that's kind of the point of the rally, is to enforce yourself as a sovereign free individual that wants to protect their gun rights. Why would they leave the guns at home? That's literally what they're protesting against. Not just leaving it at home, but having them seized. Now, again, I don't support any violence. I think there's peaceful ways to get around these kinds of situations. But without a doubt, the most violent entity in the world, the government, is trying to seize guns from innocent people. And they expect that that's going to go over well in Virginia? I mean, this is how completely out of touch these people are. They don't realize how incredibly risky to their own safety that really is. For those just tuning in, there is breaking news. Make sure to press like on this video if you haven't already. And we are reporting on how the Virginia government has just declared a state of emergency due to a rally coming up on January 20th. In favor of gun rights, and they're banning guns at the Capitol building, which is this creepy, I'll show you the thumbnail here for a moment, this creepy building that looks like a Roman temple, which is very, very fitting, and has, a bunch of creepy symbolic stuff in the front. And anyway, we'll get into this more. Make sure to press like. And so this has been developing for quite some time, and we've seen the development of red flag laws over the years. People have died already. People have been had their houses, cops with no-knock raiding their houses, taking their guns, and then the people defend themselves, and then they get killed or go to jail. And this is a symptom of the state getting more and more centralized power and trying more and more harder to become just the biggest criminal racket we've ever seen in history, and being able to take full control over the populace. This is how freedom dies. And unfortunately, so often with thunderous applause, if I am to take a line out of Star Wars here, with the amount of people that are begging the government to seize the guns, the same people, by the way, that are totally anti-Trump and call Trump, Hitler, and then want Trump to take all the guns. I mean, think of the mental gymnastics of some of these people. It's absolutely insane. I will be getting to questions shortly. Make sure to press like on this video, and super chats help a lot as well. We have 304 people joining us. Welcome to this live broadcast. There is breaking news, and we're going to get deeper into it in a moment. But there's so many things to go into here, and I want to first go back a little ways. And this happened, I believe, on January 13th, which added to an already volatile situation, which turned into this rally that's been planned for quite some time. Our friend Ford Fisher is going to be there on the ground at the 20th rally on News to Share. But you can see here, gun control bill passed by Virginia's Senate Judiciary Committee. And again, that was on January 13th, and this has been an incremental move towards gun control in Virginia. As it says, Virginia's Senate Judiciary Committee passed several gun control bills Monday morning. Those bills tackle everything from universal background checks to SB 770-background checks, one gun a month limit, red flag laws, firearms and ammunition to be controlled by localities, as well as firearms being restricted at public events. Each bill was brought before the committee and discussed at length, with some amendments included. For 5 minutes, opposers and supporters were able to speak on the bill. For 5 minutes. For 5 minutes. Like, think of that for a second. Oh, we're just going to take away your rights. You got 5 minutes to say things. Not that it'll do anything because we already signed all of this legislation. As it says here, a majority of opposers said the bill will only impact the law-abiding citizens and not the criminals, whereas supporters said the bills will help in limiting violence and keeping Virginia safe. Well, statistically, that is untrue, guys. The places with the most laws surrounding guns happen to have the most crime, not just gun crime. It's not about gun crime. It's about overall crime, violent crime, theft, rape, murder. I mean, this goes without saying that you look at the stats throughout the United States and throughout the world. And look, since 1997, the crime rate has been going down worldwide, generally. And then they banned guns in Australia, and they're like, look, Australia's crime rate's going down after we ban guns. It's actually going down slower than the global rate. They're blaming the gun ban on the crime rate going down in Australia at a lower rate than the rest of the world on average. I mean, this is how they mess with and fudge with statistics and numbers. It's absurd. In Chicago, you have just massive gun crime, but not just massive gun crime. You have massive murder, rape, theft, etc. And people can't defend themselves. You have a bunch of terrible people who are going to get guns anyway. I mean, it has been said a million times. It feels like it's ridiculous that I even have to say it, but criminals don't follow laws, and a lot of good people don't follow laws either. Keep that in mind. A bunch of ink on paper isn't going to change the fact that people will try to do what they need to do or what they shouldn't do or whatever it might be to be able to get their way in life. And we see that with prohibition of any kind, from alcohol to guns. You see so many people talking about, on the left, like, with cannabis prohibition for years, how terrible it is and it creates a black market. But then you see a lot of these same people support gun laws and they're like, oh, it's different. Cannabis doesn't kill people. Neither do guns. I mean, people kill people. And I guess I'm saying some really obvious stuff here that people have been saying for decades. It almost seems like I'm just repeating or like a broken record here. But it's obvious at this point in time. How could people not notice that people are the ones that are responsible for their own actions? I mean, Eric Holder with Operation Fast and Furious was running guns into Mexico and under administrations before that as well, arming and funding cartels while propping up the war on drugs, causing this problem so that the black market prevailed, and then guns got onto the streets and they were utilizing it to crack down on people in the U.S. and in Mexico. With guns that they provided. It's like how they arm and fund terrorists in the Middle East, and they're like, oh, there's terrorism, we have to go to war now. I mean, it's absurd. And it just creates this perpetual Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution. The government comes in as the savior out of the chaos it created. Order out of chaos, as always. That's how the government survives in the way that they do. And it's going to perpetuate if people keep calling for government to solve the problems of government. It's not going to suddenly magically disappear. So for those just tuning in, there is breaking news out of Virginia. I will get it back up on the screen for those to check out. Make sure to press like on this video if you haven't already, and send a super chat. Virginia declares state of emergency after armed militias threaten to storm the Capitol. And the Virginia governor declared the state of emergency and banned all guns on Capitol grounds ahead of this rally, this gun rights rally. And let me note that as much as they want to try and ban guns, I mean, overall, I'm actually quite optimistic. I don't think it's possible. I don't think that it's likely that they will be able to ban guns in the United States. They've been able to get a lot of people on their knees, no doubt about it. They've been able to get a lot of people to submit like a bunch of slaves, sure. But with that said, it's never been easier for people to build guns in their garage and find parts for guns. 3D printing. Cody Wilson, look at what's coming out of that. He went to jail. He came out and immediately went back to doing that work. It's not something that the government can do in the age of technology and the age of information, where you can reach people so easily, privately, encrypted messaging, and be able to build guns so easily. So, I mean, this notion is absurd. It's going to fail. But in the meantime, a lot of action needs to be taken. Now, again, I do not support violence in this case at all. I have to say that for legal reasons, because, YouTube terms of service strictly prohibit me basically even talking about this news, which is why you're not seeing a lot of news on this subject right now, but it needs to be talked about. For those who's tuning in, make sure to press like. We need super chats. It's the only way we make any money as a media anymore because we are shadow banned and demonetized. Make sure to check those links below if you haven't already. We're getting into lots of news today regarding Virginia and this absurd idea that it's a good idea to ban guns in a state that loves guns. And they've been passing legislation. I'll put that up on the screen for all you guys. But again, those super chats are what keeps this kind of information alive and stops us from being enslaved to complete mainstream media and only mainstream media. So keep that in mind. And dollar or more is very helpful. So that super chat button below the chat really helps and allows us to keep reporting on this kind of news. Anyway, as it says from this NBC Washington article, 4 gun control measures approved in Virginia Senate committee, and this is from, again, January 13th, 2020, so it's a few days ago, and it just honestly just added to the issues that were already occurring in Virginia, as there was this rally planned for quite some time before this law passed. And it just shows that how out of touch these politicians are. They have absolutely no comprehension of how people will react in a state like Virginia to their guns being seized. Are people going to just go and hand in their guns? Because I know some people have, and there's a lot of, really weak people out there that think, well, the government said it's bad, so I'll do whatever the government says. But most people aren't going to respond well to this, and they're not. And that's why this gun rights video is happening, or protest is happening on January 20th, which our friend Ford Fisher is going to be reporting on. And it's funny because all the news stories, mainstream news stories, leftist news stories, are claiming that it's like Charlottesville. They don't want another Charlottesville to happen. Again, standing up for your right as a free individual, one of the most important, crucial rights that you have as a free individual to defend yourself, and without that, you can't defend your speech, and everything else goes down like a domino effect. Defending yourself is not racist. Like, imagine putting those connotations into this. Like, these medias, these mainstream medias are supposed to be like, critical thinking and objective, and they're basically just calling these events where people are trying to defend their freedoms, constitutional rights, or whatever you want to call it, racism. Like, they're making those connotations obviously clear for the dumbest people reading the article to see and go, oh yeah, that must be what it is. I'm gonna be taking a lot of comments soon. JRM O'Brien says donate Bitcoin. Yeah, I really appreciate it if you do. Those links are below in the comments. We've got lots of crypto addresses. And, with all this fear happening regarding war, regarding gun confiscation, regarding the destruction of free will, rights, etc., the so-called boogaloo thing that people are talking about, is a really strange trend. Not the word I'd use, but whatever. With all that kind of stuff happening, we see a lot of movement towards safe havens like cryptocurrency and gold lately. I mean, the pump in the cryptocurrency market was massive yesterday, so that should be noted. Anyway, we're going to get to some more of these articles. There's one I haven't gotten into at all yet, and I want to bring that up on the screen from WTVR, and as it says here, Virginia governor to ban guns from Capitol grounds. We don't want another Charlottesville. See what I mean? Like, these connotations, like this is a racist rally to support your ability to defend yourself, one of the most crucial rights that you have as a free human being. And the only thing that sets you apart from being a complete slave to the government is perhaps your individual ability to defend yourself, which they've been attacking so wholeheartedly in the past, couple decades, because they want people to be slaves. They want people to be in debt. They want people to be unable to defend themselves, unable to grow their own food, unable to collect water. They want to push people into big cities. They want to create housing bubbles. They want people in debt to the banks, to the government, paying off the interest on the debt, working 50% of the year as a tax slave, and just weak and stupid. And they slowly make the kids dumber and dumber with public school indoctrination camps, take away any ways of defending themselves. And then at the end of the day, you just end up like Logan's Run, and the time's up and the government just takes you out. It just basically creates a nation of slaves. And why wouldn't the government want to do that? Why wouldn't they? That's literally the only thing that keeps them up and running, makes them sustainable, is the subservience of the masses. Government doesn't do well when the masses have power. And people shouldn't be in fear of the government. The government should always be in fear of the people. Anyway, there's one person that I can't actually read the name of in the chat that says Charlottesville was started by armed leftists threatening the crazy driver. Cody Shizmark says it's us versus the devil, good versus evil. It always is good versus evil at the end of the day. And Andre Nikat, what's her name? Nikatlina says no one was shot at Charlottesville. WTF? I know exactly. I mean, a guy shot off a gun, some crazy hillbilly guy. Okay, whatever. But this is not Charlottesville. Imagine those connotations. Like, oh, people want to defend themselves. They're racist. I mean, where are we as a civilization today when we're calling people defending themselves racist? What does that even mean? What do these words even mean anymore? They just use it for whatever they want to discount things, and then a bunch of idiots hear it and go, "Oh yeah, that must be right. They're racist." It's ridiculous. The government is the biggest organized crime racket in the world, has killed millions of people in the last 20 years alone, and people want that entity to be the only one holding guns while they arm and fund cartels in the South while pushing the war on drugs and arming and funding terrorists while blowing up innocents. I mean, this entity, you want to have all the guns. You don't want to be able to defend yourself. What happened recently in I think was it Florida where that church shooting happened, or Texas? And this people were so mad and were calling it racist because the town was called White Settlement. And this guy in church saved all these lives. Unfortunately, a couple people got killed, but the murderer who went into this church and meant to kill all these people got shot dead on sight by this guy immediately. It was actually one of the most impressive examples of bullseye shot right to this guy's head. And it ended it immediately. OG says an armed society is a free society. Absolutely, because it means that they are the militia, not the government. And remember, the United States was founded by an armed militia that was private, wasn't publicly, it wasn't like a government entity. And it was a voluntary militia that eventually did turn involuntary, but nonetheless, it was a voluntary militia that overthrew the world's greatest order ever, in at least one plot of land, but a large plot of land nonetheless, and became the United States. People forget this. People forget, where we'd be without the ability to arm ourselves. And let me note, like statistically, places with more guns are more safe. Places with less guns are less safe. That is just facts coming from the FBI and all these other entities, three-letter entities. Over the last 40 years, you can add up the statistics, and places with more guns are safer. End stop, period. We've debated people on the streets about this. I'm very tired today, so I'm having a hard time quoting all of it. But we debated people on the streets before on Wham videos. You could check our channel for that, arguing with people on the street about guns. And this guy was like, yeah, well, Trump is worse than Hitler, and he should also take the guns because no one has shot him yet. It's like, seriously, that's the mentality of these people. They want to be in charge of the defense of the masses. It's just so crazy. They're against a police state on the left. They're a lot of them anyway, though a lot of them are pushing the social credit Chinese nonsense. But they're against a police state. They're against war, allegedly, though I haven't seen it recently. And yet they want the government that kills millions of people and, enforcing these police states in wars to have all the guns. And then they hate Trump and call him Hitler, but they want him to take all the guns like Hitler did. And then when people are like, well, Hitler didn't take all the guns, people were armed under Hitler. Yeah, the Nazis. Hitler armed his loyalists. That's what happened. Like Venezuela, they ban all these guns. And people are like, well, but the Venezuelan government handed out all these guns to their loyalists and told them to purge opposition. Alex S. says, didn't realize you were a gun nut. Alex, do you have an argument? Shinobi Wan says, privileged white male, what's up, brother? Matthew Tanner says, joke clickbait, it's over a gun rally, not a target on the Capitol. But no, they are targeting the Capitol for their rally. You read it wrong, not my bad, your bad. So the breaking news is basically that there has been a rally planned for quite some time on January 20th in Virginia on the Capitol. This escalated recently with not just red flag laws, but recent gun confiscation laws by the Democratic government. What happened next was that the rally they grew in size and scope. As you've seen, people have been buying up guns at a faster rate since these gun laws have gone into effect. It says a lot about how people react when their freedoms are targeted. What happened after that was that the Virginia government, the governor today, declared a state of emergency as this rally is supposed to be held on the Capitol grounds. He banned guns on the Capitol grounds. It's not that the militia was going to shoot up the Capitol. I didn't say that. The militia is targeting the Capitol for the open carry event. Now, people are being told to leave their guns at home. If we're talking about a militia, they're not going to leave their guns at home. It goes without saying. And essentially, it's going to be a standoff, much like we saw at the Bundy Ranch, where if someone shoots first, it's bad news for everyone. And I hope no one infiltrates and creates a problem at the event on the good side of things. But obviously, I don't support any violence and I don't support any actual attacks. I just support people defending their free will and their right to defend themselves, because if you give up your right to defend yourself, you give up your ability to speak freely, you give up your ability to set yourself apart from the government as a sovereign being, and you become a subject very quickly of the state. Worse cattle than previously, especially since people are giving up 50% of their income to the government each year, if not more. And that's not a free society. This entity that's killed millions of people should not have all the guns, period. It's not even as much about, home intruders. It's the fact that it keeps the government in check, knowing that people have guns. And that's important. The government has a bunch of guns, and people say, well, but the government could, people will never beat the government. The government has all these guns, they have all this money that they stole from taxpayers, etc. Right. How many of those people in government will really start just shooting civilians? There are a lot, sure. But overall, there's more people on the ground, not just militias, but free individuals living in the United States that are willing to defend themselves than there are not. If the government starts shooting at civilians, you're going to see Hong Kong-like protests with millions of people in the streets in all the major cities. And I mean, again, if you look at history, this kind of stuff doesn't go over very well, and they've been trying to make it as incremental as possible to prop up the state and make the people more and more dependent, and it's not working. Cody Chismark says, so far this year I've taken home $1,269. The government got paid $686. Yeah, I know. That's theft. And if people aren't able to defend themselves, it's not, again, about shooting intruders, though that helps, and it's nice to know that you don't have to wait 45 minutes for the cops to show up. I've actually had it in the past where I had to wait over 4 hours when I was beaten half to death when I was younger. But and the cops were down the street, the police station. But on top of that, it's about this state that has killed millions of people and is constantly getting bigger and growing globally, having all the guns. That is not something that individuals should accept. And what we're seeing in Virginia is an example of the backlash against government when government tries to seize the guns, push red flag laws that were endorsed by Trump, etc. If you haven't already, make sure to press like on this video. If you're just tuning in, there is breaking news out of Virginia. I have to note that, I just can't see this being a possibility long term. I believe that people are going to be able to stand up. You can build guns in your garage. It's 3D print guns. I can't even imagine the technology in 10 years or that kind of stuff. It's futile. With that said, people should be vocally standing up for their ability to defend themselves. And Virginia has been facing a lot of not just red flag laws, but a lot of gun confiscation bills in the past short while, and people are reacting to it. Now the governor is banning guns on the property of the Capitol and declaring a state of emergency. And I think it's all over fear to get a bunch of people who are anti-gun to stand up and support government, the most pro-gun entity in the world. And by that, I mean in their own hands when they're killing millions of people. Calling someone a gun nut for supporting an individual's right to defend themselves just shows how propagated and how far gone we truly are as a society. If it's okay for the government to kill millions of people, but and it's not okay for people to hold guns, and it's okay for the government to take all the guns from those people while killing millions of people. Anyway, we're going to get more into this news. I'll just show the headline again for those that have not yet seen. It's breaking news. Virginia declares state of emergency after armed militia threatens to storm the Capitol. And again, they're claiming that it's like Charlottesville. It's imagine the mental gymnastics. It's just so absurd. It's so wrong. Shinobi Wan just sent New Zealand 349. Says they can never take our firearms. Yeah, I appreciate the super chat. Again, the super chats are the only way that we stay alive as a media. It's the only way we're able to survive because they are shadow banning and demonetizing us to death. And this video will definitely be shadow banned and demonetized. So anyway, if you want to send super chats, I really appreciate it. $1 or more. It makes a huge difference. It's literally all that's keeping us up and running. Make sure to press like on this video as well as check those links below. There's cryptocurrency addresses, GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar, where we do subscriber-only content at $5 or more a month. And also on top of that, we have t-shirts at our Teespring store, linked below as well. Black Betty says, which militia? Iran? Yeah, right. No, a private armed militia that is against their rights being taken away to defend themselves. Anyway, so people, again, I'll get back to what I was saying earlier. This notion that the government has more guns, so therefore they will win. But that's BS, because you have to assume that the government is going to use all those guns when most of those people in the government are just slaves that are being used by the government as pawns to sacrifice for the king and the queen. And those people with those guns are probably going to, take the side of the militias, regardless, because they don't want to shoot their own family members. They don't want to shoot their friends. They can't sleep at night if they're going around the street shooting, individuals walking on the street. We have to understand the emotional factor here and the logical factor. And the most logical conclusion to come to is most people in government won't go with the flow of shooting innocent people in the streets of the United States. They could be convinced to torture and murder millions of people overseas, but when people look like them, people are statistically less likely to shoot. It's just an unfortunate reality, but fortunate in the case of, within the boundaries of the United States order. People aren't going to, the government, most agents aren't going to go into the streets and start shooting innocent people. So Black Betty, who says you are powerless, doesn't matter if you've got a gun. No, it does matter. It makes a huge difference. What about the super soldiers, part robot and demon, says Missy D. Yeah, can you imagine what will happen to the major officials if they start sending RoboCop people out in the street and just murdering people? I mean, this is exactly why people need guns. Rika, the hopeful volunteer, says defeatism is what doesn't matter. I agreed. If people want to give in, I mean, at the end of the day, freedom doesn't exist unless you defend it. It's literally just it's subjective. It's not objective. It's subjective. You defend it. Pieces of paper, the Constitution, none of that makes a damn difference. It doesn't mean anything. It helps as far as convincing people to not go against their magical laws, but it comes down to you as a free individual defending yourself. So at the end of the day, freedom is just responsibility, and without it, you can't have one without the other. So to give in because the government is saying certain things, that means, okay, right, you don't have rights then. You have just willingly submitted and given up your rights. But if you stand up for your free will, that is where the freedom comes from. It's you defending yourself. And that's why guns are so important for not just self-defense, but defending your free will and freedom. Colin Stevens sent $5 in the super chat, says you should go on the kill stream and discuss this sometimes. Ethan Ralph, the host, will be at the protest next week in Richmond. Sounds good. Well, I don't know much about them, so let me know, and yeah, just comment and all that kind of stuff, and I'll try to get on track with that. I really appreciate the super chat. It means a lot, and again, those are the things that are keeping us alive as a media, so it makes a huge world of difference, and it's what puts food on the plate and allows us to report on these stories on a daily basis. Make sure to press like if you haven't already, and check those links below. Again, really, really, truly appreciate those super chats. And our friend Ford Fisher will also be on the ground at the rally in Richmond, and I'm sure he'll be getting good footage. He was supposed to be in Vegas for a police protest, and instead I'm going to be there on January 20th reporting on that. The other side says, thank you for all the updates, Josh. My pleasure. Happy to do it. Some of the messages in the chat are getting cut off, unfortunately, so I can't read it. It's just cut down the center. It's a glitch on YouTube. Anyway, for those just tuning in, again, Virginia declares state of emergency after armed militias threatened to storm the Capitol. The governor said law enforcement had intercepted extremist rhetoric similar to the lead up to Charlottesville days before pro gun activists are holding a rally. And isn't it interesting that, again, they create some kind of racist connotation, claiming that it's like Charlottesville, which is wrong on every level. It just shows how the media propagates people to give up their freedoms, give up their ability to defend themselves, give up free speech, and the media benefits from people giving up their free speech because if the media, if people give up their free speech, they submit to the mainstream media propaganda more. Jennifer's channel says I subbed. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Again, press like on this video if you haven't already. Randy Smith says if they succeed in Virginia, then it will spread nationwide. Then absolutely, I agree. It will see huge movement nationwide, and it's amazing that we haven't already. I mean, again, I don't support the violence, but I mean, the government is the most violent entity in the world, kills millions of people, and then people want to give it the guns, the only guns, while they create a police state and murder all these people overseas. I mean, this notion is just so absurd, and all these leftists that call Trump Hitler and then want to give Trump all the guns, while people like the Operation Fast and Furious, Eric Holder arming and funding the cartels while propping up the war on drugs here in the United States, and creating thousands of people have died because of that. And they have a heroin trade out of Afghanistan while arming and funding terrorists in the region. Destabilizing, creating order out of chaos. That's what the government is best at. And what are people doing about it? What are you doing about it? And again, this video very well will be taken down by YouTube. It's a huge, huge possibility here because we're not allowed to talk about this stuff anymore. And that goes back to that notion of, you know, the media being part of this movement against not just free speech, but free will in general. And they are propped up and monopolized by the state and by entities like YouTube. And those of us that try to speak out against it or just report the news as a regular person does without, you know, creating some weird Charlottesville connotation regarding a gun rights rally. Those of us that do that kind of stuff, we're taken down from YouTube, we're deleted, our videos are shadow banned, we're demonetized, we're censored. A lot of videos by Press for Truth have been taken down recently where he's just like reporting on Epstein. Is that what you want, guys? Or can you support independent media? Because that is the most important thing you could do right now as far as this stuff goes, as well as, you know, taking action as an individual, is supporting the independent medias that are calling this garbage out and trying to shoo the snakes out of their den. So I hope you guys support in any way you can. Check those links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar, cryptocurrency addresses, all sorts of stuff. We could really use your help now more than ever as they are shutting us down and trying to shut us up. And we will not go away quietly, which is why we're on flote.app, flote.app. That's flote.app. The future of social media, replacing Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon, all in one with encrypted messaging for privacy and as well as monetization on videos for creators, which creates great incentive to get creators on the platform. You can monetize your posts and your videos, and there's super chats and cryptocurrency on the live streams. There's no algorithm telling you what you can or cannot see. It's very important. Everyone should be getting on flote.app, flote.app immediately. Anyway, make sure to press like on the video if you haven't already. And the breaking news is that Virginia is declaring a state of emergency as they prepare for a rally at the Capitol building by gun rights supporters and militias supporting self-defense. I mean, that's one of the basics of humanity. Without defending self-defense, you are either a slave or you are dead. So, I mean, I just can't believe so many people just support giving up the most crucial self-defense is all under emotion. Well, there's shootings. Yeah, there's more shootings and there's more deaths. There's more murders. There's more, thefts. There's more, rapes and stuff like that in places where guns are banned. Statistically, period. Look up the stats. It's not that hard to get around. I'm going to see if I can actually bring up some stats right now that I think are pretty important, and we'll go through a few of them. I bookmarked this page years ago because it was one of the best examples of breakdowns of gun rights. And let me just see if I can find it here. It was out of Dana Lash's website. Here we go. I'll bring it up on the screen for you guys in just a moment as I get it up and running. And I'm going to go down to the most important facts in here. Let me just get this up. Sorry, just if you hold up for one moment, I'll get this. Oh, here we go. So, as it says, myth. Armed citizens means more death. Fact. Crime has plummeted in every state which has implemented concealed carry. And I apologize for the dusty screen, but this is my old laptop that crashed, and my most recent laptop is completely destroyed. So I'm waiting on a new laptop. So this is an old dusty one. But anyway, as it says, between 2008 and 2009, the FBI's preliminary numbers indicate that murder fell nationally by 10% and by about 8% in cities that have between 500,000 and 999,000 people. Washington's population is about 590,000. During that same period of time, murders in the district fell by an astounding 25%, dropping from 186 to 140. The city only started allowing citizens to own handguns for defense again in late 2008. Examining all multiple victim public shootings in the United States from 1977 to 1999 shows that on average, states that adopt right to carry laws experience a 60% drop in the rates at which the attacks occur and a 78% drop in the rates at which people are killed or injured from such attacks. The NSC estimates that that in 1995, firearm accidents accounted for 1.5% of fatal accidents. Larger percentages of fatal accidents were accounted for by motor vehicle accidents, 47%, falls, 13.5%, poisonings, 11.4%, drowning, 4.8%, fires, 4.4%, and choking on an ingested object, 30%. And I quote, violent crime rates are highest overall in states with laws severely limiting or prohibiting the carrying of concealed firearms for self-defense. FBI Uniform Crime Reports 1992, and it's changed. It's gone on in that way significantly since, as well as I went into earlier. As it says, the total violent crime rate is 26% higher in the restrictive states. 798.3 per 100,000 population, then in the less restrictive states, 631.6 per 100,000. The homicide rate is 49% higher in restrictive states, 10.1 per 100,000, than in the states with less restrictive CCW laws, 6.8 per 100,000. The robbery rate is 58% higher in the restrictive states, 289.7 per 100,000, than in the less restrictive states, 183.1 per 100,000. The aggravated assault rate is 15% higher in the restrictive states, 455.9 per 100,000, than in the less restrictive states, 398.3 per 100,000. Using FBI data, 1992, homicide trends in the 17 states with less restrictive CCW laws compare favorably against national trends, and almost all CCW permittees are law-abiding. Since adopting CCW 1987, Florida's homicide rate, or 1987, Florida's homicide rate has fallen 21%, while the U.S. rate has risen 12%. From start up 10/1/87 to 2/28/1994, over 6 years, Florida issued 204,108 permits. Only 0.008% were revoked because permittees later committed crimes, not necessarily violent, in which guns were present, not necessarily used. Of 14,000 CCW licensees in Oregon, only 0.03% were convicted of the criminal, not necessarily violent use of possession of a firearm. And it goes on. But this is the kind of stuff that we need to be aware of, because people too often get emotionally tied to this idea that guns are loud, guns are scary, guns are terrible. And we need to recognize the stats show that places with more guns are more safe. Period. Colin Stevens, thank you for the $2 super chat. Says the Ralph at the ralphreport.com to contact him. All right, thank you. I appreciate the information, and I really appreciate the super chat. Cold Steel Truth says the enforcement will not be with guns. They will use VMADs, active denial, and other microwave weapons. Don't be unrealistically confident with a few guns, guys. Yeah, well, it's more about how the government actually reacts and the agents of the government actually react to shooting their family members, which I don't think they're going to do mostly. Anyway, again, it's all nice and you know, to say that well, we want to stop gun violence on the street. Okay, well, what if gun crime went down but rape and theft and murder went way up? Violent crime went way up. Why do people ignore that? Would you rather gun crime go down a little bit while rape, murder, and theft skyrocket? Or would you rather that gun crime go up a little bit while all those other things plummet like a rock, as we see in places where people are allowed to hold guns? Easy Malone says, your feelings don't dictate my rights. I 100% agree. And again, government isn't going to protect those rights. I mean, the Constitution is somewhat of a safeguard, but not really. It's just ink on paper at the end of the day. You are responsible for your rights. Freedom and responsibility are the same thing. They go hand in hand. One cannot exist without the other. So keep that in mind, understand it, and take it to the bank, because that is how you will save yourself and your family in the future, is your own responsibility. Freedom doesn't exist. It's not a thing that's magically there. Freedom exists when you enforce that freedom, when you protect that freedom. That goes for speech, that goes for defense, that goes for everything in your life. Your ability to not be stolen from. What are you doing about it? It's not about, oh, all these things are problems. It's what are you doing about it? So I hope these protests aren't asking the government for permission and more just saying, no, you won't take our freedoms away. Period. End stop. You will not take them away. But it doesn't need to be violent at all. I mean, I believe freedom will come through responsibility. It's not going to be a revolution as much as it will be an evolution. And that's what we're seeing. And it's interesting how cryptocurrency is reacting to all this stuff, from gun confiscation to war. Cryptocurrency and gold and silver are skyrocketing in value because people are a little bit scared and they want to insure themselves. And I believe technology is a big part of replacing the old guard systems with new freedom-oriented alternatives based on the individual and the free market. The government is losing its relevance. They're scared. That's why they're cracking down now more than ever as they enter into a major recession that's been going on since 2008, but papered over and will only get worse. They know that they're coming to an end, and they don't want technology to deem them irrelevant because they need their power. They need their subservience. They need the dumb stupidity of a bunch of enslaved masses. So don't be a slave, guys. It's as easy as that. Decentralize, don't be a slave, and support alternatives to the state. Support voluntarism, support freedom, support your own freedom, support your family's freedom. Make sure to press like on this video if you haven't already. Let's get it above 300 likes. I appreciate everyone tuning in today. Make sure to check those links in the description. Again, for those that are just tuning in, the breaking news is Virginia declares state of emergency after armed militia threatens to storm the Capitol. And this has been something that's been a risk for a long time to the state of Virginia, as we've been seeing them crack down on gun rights one by one. As I was mentioning earlier here, and I'll bring it up on the screen. Here you go. Gun control bill passed by Virginia Senate Judiciary Committee. This was just a couple days ago. There was already a planned march on the Capitol in Virginia. And this certainly didn't help the situation. And now they're wondering why people are reacting. They're reacting because they don't want to be slaves. Simple as that. It's not difficult to comprehend that people don't like their defenses being taken away and becoming slaves to the state that will own all the guns, are killing millions of people, and thinks they have a moral high ground to tell people if they can or cannot be self-sufficient and defend themselves. Sieb Razib said, "Don't be jealous, Enki." What are you talking about, Enki? Oh, Enki says, "Easy Malone, China already owns your sorry American asses." Well, I mean, China is set to surpass the United States in power in the coming years. All the more reason why people should be able to have guns, because that's a little bit terrifying, and people should be concerned, and people should be defending themselves against this communist, fascio-communist, technocratic superstate that's taking over the world. As much of Africa, like the IMF and the US has done before. Cold Steel Truth says, we've been slaves to government for the last 200 years. Well, I mean, independently, I mean, it depends. Are you giving up those freedoms? Are you giving up a little bit of security for a little bit, or a little bit of liberty for a little bit of temporary security? Because, I mean, as Benjamin Franklin says, then you will get or deserve neither. And it depends on what we do as individuals, not how we protest the government. I mean, we should scare the government, but it's not about how we protest the government. It's how we protest for ourselves and live freely and live by example. And that's the most important part about freedom. Are you submitting? Or are you rejecting the notion of being a slave to the state? And that's what every single person watching this should ask themselves. What are they doing in their life? What are you doing in your life to defend yourself? Enki says, if UK citizens were armed, there would be no Tory party. If UK citizens were armed, you wouldn't see crazy rape and theft and murder rates in London. Just absolutely crazy. And then they're trying to ban knives at the same time. It's so insane that people have become so enslaved there that they're willing to give up literally everything they have left as an individual and become part of that collective as such a willing slave, when there's worse crime rates than in South Africa at nighttime in London. You talk about women's rights, why aren't there more feminists standing up for gun rights? It's insane. Anyway, so I'll get back at you guys with more of this in the near future. I appreciate the super chats today. They mean a lot. We got $12 Canadian in super chats, and that goes a long way. It's the only thing keeping us alive right now, so that's all the money I'll be making today. So I appreciate the super chats. Make sure to check GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar, pledge more than $5 or more a month, and you will get a subscriber-only content. And find us on float.app. You can pledge there in crypto as well, flote.app, the future of social media. And also find us on BitChute, and just check all those links. We got a Teespring store. We got lots of products that we are selling on our Teespring store that help support independent media. So check that below. And it means a lot if you guys check back as much as possible. You just make sure that you bookmark our channel on YouTube, because we're probably just going to be gone any day now. This video is probably going to be flagged as somehow inciting violence, even though we're literally saying we don't want violence. But you know how YouTube is now. They're just like a censorship machine that tries to scare people into, especially independent medias, into not reporting the truth anymore so that they don't get their channels taken away. I don't negotiate with terrorists, so they can bite me one way or another. I will never stop, and I'm selling everything I own and getting rid of everything I own so that I can live as a nomad on the other side of the world, so I can keep doing this, which shows that, this isn't about money at all. I don't make any money. If this was about money, I wouldn't be doing this. But anyway, I'm going up against a lot of censors. Almost every one of my videos is demonetized and censored and shadow banned, and we're reaching almost nobody. Channels with 10,000 subscribers get like 800 people watching at a time, and our channel has 136,000 subscribers and going down every day because they're mass deleting subscribers without their permission. So we have 238 people watching right now, which is better than usual because it's breaking news, but nonetheless, we're definitely shadow banned. So make sure to click to be notified. Check back as much as possible. Cold Steel Truth says, I'll give you $75 for the leather couch. Sold. If you are in Vegas. I'm not selling my cameras. I'm not selling my laptop. I don't have a laptop really right now that I can use. Mine crashed. I can't afford a new one. But I'm not selling the stuff I need to make videos. But I'm selling everything else, getting out of my house, getting rid of my vehicle, and going to the other side of the world so I can keep doing this, because it's like $150 to $350 a month for Airbnb in places like Greece, etc. And very beautiful places, by the way. With all bills covered and furnished and all that, internet, all that kind of stuff included. So I can just save a bunch of money, and I could actually do this work without going completely under. And I've barely made enough this month to cover that amount. So that just tells you how we're doing here on YouTube. So please consider $1 or more a month in Subscribestar, Patreon, sending a donation through GoFundMe, super chats, all those kinds of things. It means a lot, and it helps keep us alive as a media so that we can keep calling out these criminal tyrants that are trying to rip every last remaining bit of freedom we have left away from us. So make sure to press like on this video as well. It helps with the algorithm, and I really appreciate everyone tuning in. Do not be a slave. Reject this notion of you not being able to defend yourself and being completely dependent like a little slave on the state. It's crucial now more than ever that we stand up for not just truth, but the things that defend the truth, defend our ability to be able to keep telling the truth in certain ways, in certain forms, and defend ourselves from becoming China, essentially, which we're not that far off from at this point. We're seeing that really pushed in Australia right now. We're seeing that pushed in Sweden, India. We need to reject that and stand up for our freedoms. Anyway, appreciate everyone tuning in. Thank you for the support, everyone. Thumbs up on the video if you haven't already. Check those links below, and we will be back at you with much more on this subject as it continues to elapse. I'm going to Morocco soon to film a thing for National Geographic on the reshot structure, which I went to last year. They're flying me out there for one day. It's going to kill me. One day to do a special for National Geographic, which might be shown on Netflix and Disney Plus. So we'll see how that goes. And then I'm going to be speaking at Anarchapulco right after, which you can get tickets to below as well, and use promo code WAM, W-A-M, and save 10% or more on your tickets, and help support independent media by using that affiliate as well. So I really appreciate anything you guys can do to help and support, and it means a great deal to us, and it's what is keeping us up and running, and we will never give up, and we will never let you guys down. So make sure to keep checking back for more videos as we're shadow banned. They probably won't notify you. Make sure to click like on all those videos and share them. And anyway, until next time, thanks for joining us, everyone. And this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.